So if my memory serves me correctly, and I'll be the first to admit that it often doesn't, I was probably about 15 or so years old, and I was standing in line at a grocery store with some friends, and we were having some fun at the expense of my parents. And we were reviewing all of the cliche things, or at least they were then. I don't know if they are anymore. The cliche things that parents would say to all of us as we were growing up. You know, I'm not worried about everyone else's kids. I'm worried about you. Do as I say, not as I do, was another one that I really loved. And my favorite was because I said so. So we were all laughing about those things, and then I started thinking about other things that they said to me that really weren't funny. They were things that I continue to think about today. And I have no idea if they even know that those things stuck with me. And these things were, don't be late. You know, like respect your time enough and other people's time enough to be on time. Oh, there's no notes on the screen. That's awesome. What was the other one? Do what you said you were going to do. If you're talking to people and you say you're going to do something for them, you do it. So these things stuck with me my whole life. I'm standing here now talking about them, but I have no idea why they stuck. I don't remember any real concerted effort from my mother or my father to sort of, pinpoint that all the time. They just stuck. And now I'm the father of an 18-year-old son who's here. You're welcome for that, sorry. and I think about it myself. I think, what could I be saying to him that might stick? And the problem is I think I think about it too much. Like I'm trying to be conscious of it. What could I be saying that he'll talk about maybe someday at a TED Talk? Or is it better to not know? Is it better to just kind of go through it and think what you say and believe what you think and all of that and hope that something sticks? Well, I don't know if that's true or not, but what I do know is that when it comes to an adult life and being in business, I think it does help to know and be aware of the influence that you can have, and particularly because that influence and the way that you choose to control dynamics can actually affect the outcome of any scenario that you might be in. So the first time that I noticed this, I was very young. I think it was 18 or 19. I was working my first job at an agency, and I was a production artist. So a production artist is basically the bottom of the totem pole from a creative perspective in an agency job. And there were three of us working there at the time, and one of those production artists was the go-to person, the one that everybody wanted to work with. Well, I wanted that to be me. I wanted everybody to want to work with me. The problem was I hadn't had enough experience or skills to sort of be that person yet. So I decided to try something different, and that was, I happened to notice that everybody that was working with that person seemed to hate it. It was filled with tension, and people were just angry all the time. And I thought, well, hey, that's not fun, and maybe I could try something different. So I just decided to be fast and pleasant to work with and make people enjoy the process of working with me. And it worked. Without getting into all the details, 21, 22, how many years, 25 years later, I'm the owner of an agency. And I believe that happened because I sort of made a decision to be easy to work with. But I wasn't as conscious of the impact I was having. I didn't know that I was actually influencing what was happening. I just knew that I wanted to enjoy the experience more. The first time I realized the impact that you could have on people, I was in a leadership position at an agency, and I was having a particularly bad day, the kind of day where you get up and you just want to fight somebody. It's not just me, right? Bad day. Got up, was driving into work, and wasn't feeling it, And I had meetings that morning with people who were presenting work, and they had to show me what they were doing. And I don't remember the first meeting, but apparently it went bad because the team stood outside my office door, probably closer than they remembered being, and I heard somebody say, "Do not go in there if you want him to approve your work." And I swear to you, I never considered, first of all, I didn't think anybody noticed. I didn't think anybody knew that I was in a crap mood that day. And I certainly hadn't considered the impact it would have on the way they felt about what to do next. To hear somebody say, "Don't go in his office, he's pissed." Surprising. So there's this is when I first began to notice it and understand that you could actually use that impact either for good or for bad. There's a theory that we use at the agency, and it's this notion of perspectives, and there's 3 sides to every story, I guess, is the whole thing around it. And if you think about any dynamic that you might be in with a group of people or another person, there's typically 3 perspectives. There's yours, which I'm sure you feel strongly about. There's somebody else's, the other person that you're engaged with, and then there is the outside perspective. And the funny thing about the outside perspective is that often it's the easiest perspective to know what needs to happen in a situation because you're not emotionally attached to any of the other 2 perspectives. And so what we often will ask people to do in a situation is to think about the other perspective. It's pretty simple. You know yours. Try to imagine what the perspective is on the other side of that triangle, and maybe you can use that to help the outcome. Quick story. We had a person at the agency a couple years ago who seemed to have trouble working with just about everybody else. And I'm sure this isn't new in our business, but it's the same for every business. That person, eventually I had to get engaged to find out what was going on, and of course I sat and listened, and that person said to me that, they're not getting it. Nobody else is getting it. And the funny thing about that, I don't know if you've ever noticed this, but have you noticed that we often are sort of like, our first default position is to try to control what everyone else is doing? We want to control what they think and what they do without really thinking about our influence on that. You have a dynamic and everybody plays a role in that dynamic. So that was the conversation we had, and this person was quite surprised to think that they had never actually considered their role in that dynamic. And once they did, they started to change the way they acted within that group. It worked for a while. Some people are just unhappy. They have to go. Another story, again, you talk about making a choice. You make a positive influence or you make a negative influence. Quick story about I had a client who was particularly upset with the agency, was calling me all the time. I was getting 1-2 calls a day about things that were wrong, and I couldn't get my head wrapped around it because it just seemed so unlikely that this much stuff was wrong with the thing that we do every day. So I finally got called to a meeting, and I was handed a sheet of paper, and the sheet of paper had 17, not even joking, I actually counted them, 17 things that were wrong with what we were doing. Now try to imagine, this is my agency. I've got somebody telling me that there are 17 things wrong with the way we work, and I know it's not true. So I boiled instantly. I'm not even joking, like it was Charlie Brown's teacher talking to me. I didn't hear the rest of it. Because all I kept thinking was, what do I need to do here to diffuse the situation? I hated it. It was very uncomfortable, and I really didn't know how I was going to address 17 issues, even if that weren't actually the case. So I asked a simple question. I just said, how are you doing? How are you doing? Changed everything. The issue left. The issues at the agency was gone. It became about, I'm stressed. My team is spread too thin. It's too busy. It's too competitive in the marketplace. We don't know what's happening. And to which I said, well, how can we help? And all of a sudden, the issue wasn't about 17 things. It was about 2 or 3 that were probably impacting what was going on. Now, I've talked a little bit about, those are sort of negative situations that you can impact, you can choose your impact to make them positive. I had a great experience a few years ago. A client of mine asked if her son could come in and talk to me at the office, and he was between high school and college, and he came into the meeting. I said, sure, I'll sit with him for an hour, we'll have a chat. I don't remember exactly what I said to him, but likely there's a few things I typically tell students. Don't be in too much of a rush to climb the corporate ladder. It's very dangerous, and be careful what you wish for. Stay curious. A lot of people nowadays, there's a sense of empowerment. Don't have that. It doesn't help anybody. And it's not what you learn, it's what you do with what you learned that actually dictates what happens next. So I had this meeting. He left. I never really thought much of it after. And a few years later, I got a card in the mail attached with, the card was attached to a basket of beer, which was awesome. The card is from 2008, and I still have it in my office, and I won't read the whole thing to you, but I will read the last line of that card that says, more importantly, I want you to know that you influenced the life of a wonderful young man. It's pretty heavy. I was like, I don't even remember what I said to that guy. I feel like I should have, right? I should have remembered. But whatever I said worked. That's kind of scary, right? If you can be conscious of it, if you can be aware of, I want to have this impact, I want to have that impact, it can be a great thing. It works the other way too. When you choose to be angry, it works. My son and I, he's going to love this one. We're driving downtown the other day, and I guess it was a couple weeks ago. I don't know, there was snow, because there's lots of it. And we watched somebody walking down the street, like a very serious walker. And there was somebody at an intersection waiting to pull out, and of course you can't see anything, so they were kind of out in the road and blocking the sidewalk. And the very serious walker gave the guy the finger as she was walking. He was in the way. And the guy in the car sort of laughed, waved as if to say, like, what am I supposed to do? And we had a little debate in the car. I'm sorry, man. He said to me, oh, man, I would have lost it. Yeah, he probably would have. What would that have done? Now there'd be a road rage scene. I'd be getting my phone out. We'd be posting it on YouTube. It'd be awesome. But the guy just waved. He's like, what am I supposed to do? I'm not that angry. I'm going to get on with my day. Completely diffused that situation. You can use it for good or you can use it for bad. My wife and I had the opportunity last year to go on the Amazing Race. It was a pretty intense thing to do, as you might imagine. Incredible, stressful, fun, exciting, pretty insane. That experience was reduced to a couple of episodes, unfortunately, because I dislocated my shoulder on a surfing challenge in Tofino. I carried that injury with me, the baggage of that injury with me for quite a while. It was fascinating to be on there, and it was fascinating to have done the challenges, and even to be kicked off was fascinating. But as the days passed, I carried that with me for a while. I remember I felt really disappointed in myself to have gotten all the way there, and then to have that happen. I was disappointed that my wife would be upset with me. In fact, I think at one point, arm still dislocated, I actually told her to keep going. You can go, find a partner. That's what she did. And then I thought, we were so excited when we first got announced as a team on the race because we were the only team that was from Atlantic Canada. And that was so exciting. Oh my God, everyone's going to be rooting for us. It's going to be great. And then I dislocated my arm and got out, and I thought, oh my God, we're the only team in Atlantic Canada. Everyone's going to be so disappointed. Well, the truth is nobody cared as much about this as we did. They designed it that way, I think. But then two things happened. And this isn't about our influence on these people. This is about their influence on us. The first was, every week that the race was, somebody was eliminated, they were giving gifts to people who had tweeted about it. And in this case, I can't even see it here, but somebody had tweeted about the influence that we had on them and referred to us as a bit of a class act. It turns out that this person was actually a friend of my wife's, who we hadn't seen in years, who now lived in Alberta, out west, which was crazy. But we saw that tweet, and the first thing I thought was, wow. Here I was worried about people being upset and thinking what they were going to think, and this tweet actually started to make me feel better. I started to think less about who did I disappoint, I wish we could have gone further, all that stuff, and thought, wow, that actually impacted me. It's the first time I started to feel better. Then we got asked to take part in this Parkinson's Super Walk, just to help bring some attention to it and to see if we could help them. So we went down to do that walk, and I remember feeling quite awkward when we got there because, again, nobody knows us. We're going to do this thing. It's not stuff that we typically do, but we'll go do it. And we went and we were starting to walk. We were walking around the block, and a pretty neat thing started to happen. All these people, all ages, kept coming up to us and saying, oh, it was so great to see you guys on the race, and how's your shoulder? And all of a sudden, again, it was starting to lift and feel much better. And just seconds, that people took to say, amazing job, and it was so great. It was just seconds. We finished that. We did a speech at the end, and there were a few people who came up to take pictures with us. And there was, I think, a little girl who came up, and she just seemed really, really excited to be taking a picture with us. And again, this wasn't about our impact on her. This was about, she has no idea what that did for me, to know that she was that excited to see us, and here I was, sulking about the whole thing. It changed the way I felt about that experience. I talked earlier about, our parents and the influence that they have. I don't think you can have a talk about the power of influence and not talk about your parents. That's where it all begins. Again, I don't know if they know what they said to me, the impact that they had, but they will now. My wife and I were looking around or talking to someone, I can't remember what it was. It might have been in a book, but we were reading about the frustrations of raising a teen. And I remember, again, one thing that stuck out in that book. And it was this thought that no matter what you think, no matter how much you think they're not listening, no matter how much you think they don't care, keep saying what you think, keep believing in what you say, and something will stick. Something will stick. I actually don't think this applies just to kids. I actually think it applies to all of us. That's the superhuman power that we all have. We have the ability to influence and shape the lives of people with the things we say, how we act, and the choices we make with it. So, you have it. I hope you find it. Most importantly, I hope you use it for good. Thank you.